Hi there, it's Dr. Rich McLean, and I'm just walking my dog here, Crystal. And I've got a message and a question for the Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus. It's to do with my human rights abuses, and it's to do with injustices that are clearly political and they're systemic, and it's victimised me financially. And these are issues at Comcare, at AFCA, at the Australian Human Rights Commission, and the AAT, and the Ombudsman, and that's all I can think of for now. I added up the sums of how I've been redacted from my prosperity, and it's about $6 million. Now, I'll just get you the brief rundown. Comcare denied to pay my workers' compensation. That was from Paul Fowler. Paul Fowler was the old boss at WorkSafe, where I was banned. Look, it went on to the AAT. It took 2.5 years to come to a determination at the AAT that I'm not indeed a worker for the purposes of the SRC Act. And that's despite immediate evidence to the contrary of a document that's from the federal court, which states they're satisfied on the evidence I provided that I was employed by the Department of Social Security. This is because I got a Department of Social Security log-on, and I've got receipts as payment summaries from them. It's pretty wild that you can go through 2.5 years and just the government just say no compensation for you. Look, it's an absolute tragedy for me, because this financial abuse has been going on for very many years for me, and I'm vilified for mental illness, from which I suffer. I've been abused as a kid, and I've been abused by police. I've been so distraught with this vilification that it forced my suicide inside Werribee Mercy Hospital in February 2021. It was deemed a fatal injury and a lethal attempt, and I was revived from certain death. The good news is I'm alive, but the bad news is for me that there's now another cover-up of the Health Complaints Commissioner, the Mental Health Complaints Commissioner, the police, IBAC, the Victorian Inspectorate, AHPRA, NHP OPC, the Victorian Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman. And I'm also a failed whistleblower. I can't get a lawyer. That's because I was framed by a very powerful lawyer called Russell Ball. Now, Russell Ball was defending a malpractice case with a GP that I made, and framed me as an extortionist, and managed to successfully delete any lawyer from my life. He's a guy who informs government policy, and he advises the Ombudsman. And from then on, in about 2017, I've never ever been able to get a lawyer. And this is in spite of the Charter of Human Rights of a person with a disability that states that people with a disability should have equality before the law, and they should access towards the law. And that hasn't been the case for me. See you later, mate. Sorry, there's another one of my brethren, homeless person, absolutely down and out, probably suffering mental illness, and the world's forsaken him. And I really feel for people like that, because I've been one of them. Now, everyone knows that my former partner, Steve Isonides, and I were together for 5 years, and everyone knows that he worked for ASIO. And this is incredibly important to acknowledge. So, Crystal, come here. Because there is a demonstrable conspiracy now that goes right up to the Office of Prime Minister and Cabinet, who refused my freedom of information, that this is one of the key things that's underpinning my political persecution as a targeted individual and as a person of interest of the Australian government. He owes me a fair, equal, legal settlement, and that is the law. We were engaged together to be married, lived in 2 different addresses, had bank accounts in each other's name. That is actually the case. Now, the second I tried to acknowledge a settlement to him was the next week I found myself locked in a psychiatric institution. And that's for the purposes of people pulling strings in order to damage me and show me the power they have when I try and go after what's precious to them, and that's their money. So we can demonstrate now that as I became unwell from work, that's because my VOCAT case failed at the Geelong Magistrates Court for my own child sexual abuse tragedy, which has maimed my life. And the magistrate said I was doomed to fail. Now, doomed to fail is colourful language for a sexual abuse survivor, and I wondered about that. But it's all come out in the wash that this was set up from the start. I was framed as an extortionist, and Mr. Ball has probably spoken to her mate over there over at the magistrate's court and said, don't give him any money, he's an extortionist. Now, I was triggered by my own client's child rape and incest issues when I was doing his VOCAT case, and I was collating his evidence because he didn't have the capacity in order to collate his own evidence. So I worked for 1.5 years with that client, and when I realised that I'd been framed and my work was rendered illegitimate, my important work with the NDIS, not only was I triggered and it upset me, but I realised I'd been politically scapegoated. And for me, this meant that my important work with that client, really important work that was going to get him his justice and which ruined his life, was now rendered illegitimate. And that's a really difficult place to be in. I've said that this is a conspiracy from the start, and it is. And it's within the Attorney General's remit now to get back to me and absolutely acknowledge my emails and my phone calls and this video message. I just wish to say that my HCF income assist didn't pay, despite obvious evidence to the contrary that my illness was not pre-existing, and that Dr. Richard Moore had stated that he saw me for years and it was never an issue. That's clear evidence that should easily get me my $75,000 from HCF income assist, and Sheena Jack is absolutely indicted in this conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, as are many other powerful people and public officials. That includes people like the bosses at Werribee Mercy Hospital and all those agencies I mentioned who have covered up my suicide. I now suffer a cognitive brain impairment. And additionally to that, Tim Goss at AFCA, who you'll see on this YouTube channel, he was caught red-handed. AFCA have 6 weeks to come for a determination for a marginalised person who's financially marginalised, and mine took over 1.5 years. And I was squatting the whole way, and this is after I killed myself and then survived and then was dumped. And then they delayed, denied, deferred my settlements until such time as they ended up banning me. I didn't get a fair trial at AFCA. It wasn't impartial. I was a targeted individual. I had a known public profile because I'm a doctor of philosophy with a controversial doctorate, and I spent 30 years in this country advocating for people with mental health issues and their carers. I wrote a Human Rights awarded autobiography, Recovered Not Cured, A Journey Through Schizophrenia, and that got a Human Rights Award and Sane's Book of the Year. But now my human rights are absolutely nowhere. As well, Liz Lindbergh from AFCA, she's another person complicit in the conspiracy because we had an impartial decision to be decided about my super with Australian Super and TAL insurers. And in a very non-impartial way, she said they don't want to cooperate anymore, and that was the end of it. I know that the federal government is my problem and my arch nemesis because as soon as the government was out of the way, I went to TAL and Australian Super and debated this, and they gave me a settlement of $50,000. So it wasn't the case at all that they weren't prepared to do business with me. It was the case that powerful political people, including Liz Lindbergh and Tim Goss, had prior knowledge of my situation with prejudice, and then they treated me differently. And this was a form of victimisation which had an aim. It was to not get me any money, and it was to delay, deny, defer my processes in order to cause me maximum damage. And I can only say that maximum damage happened because I've literally killed myself and then the world's covered it up. So it brings me to another. So Comcare rejected my workers' compensation claim, and it went to come on, Crystal. It went to the AAT, and at the time I'd written to Michaelia Cash, the then Attorney General, and I said to her, listen, I've lost at the Australian Human Rights Commission, at the police, at AFCA, at Comcare. This problem's systemic for me. I predict, and this is back in 2021 or 22, that my AFCA case will fall over as well. This is an opportunity for you to intervene, and it's an opportunity to do what's right, and it's an opportunity to acknowledge that there's systemic, profound injustice, and it's victimising me, and that I've already predicted that this is going to fail. I want you to intervene so it doesn't. And she said to me that I should seek help with the SANE helpline. Now, this is entirely frustrating because I actually told her I don't want to be referred to homelessness services. I don't want to, come on, Crystal, I don't want to have the link to Lifeline. I want you to politically intervene, as is your remit of an Attorney General, when you absolutely know that systemic, profound injustice and victimisation has demonstrably been occurring. And so it did fall over. My case at the AAT, my work cover case, was absolutely biased, it was prejudiced, it was imbalanced, it was unfair. And the government, who already said no to my work cover, now had a government lawyer in Kate Watson, and Kate Watson defended the government's position that I indeed wasn't a worker for the purposes of the SRC Act. Every worker in Victoria is acknowledgeable to work cover if they're injured at work or have a psychological injury, and I'm no different. But it's the case that I am different because of the situations that I've just described. When the hearing went to Member Pennell at the AAT, and it was backed up by Kate Watson, it was an illegal and unbalanced and unfair way to legitimise a complaint that was already up in the gears of the Australian government, and who the kingpins who have undermined my destruction absolutely have already decided that I wouldn't get that payment. So I didn't get the payment. And this leaves me in a very difficult position because I've been homeless. I've added up all the detriments that I've suffered. Financial detriments equal over $6 million, and physical detriments, well, they've abused me to death, and now I have a cognitive brain impairment. And because of this conspiracy and people's willingness to vilify me with paranoia or mental illness, people don't talk to me anymore. And I've lost all my friends and family, and people don't seem to understand that there is a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. It's illegal, it's immoral, it victimises me, and further, the powers that be aren't acknowledging me. And to not acknowledge someone is actually a method of torture. And I know the reason why they're not acknowledging me, and I know why Mark Dreyfus isn't acknowledging me. I know that he's a public official, and it's within his remit to act within the Charter of Human Rights of a person with a disability and act ethically at all times. But by him, he's not just ignoring me, he's pointedly neglecting me. And this is a problem. This goes just beyond I'm a problem like any other Australian. This goes onto a problem of this guy's trouble. Come on, Crystal. And we need to silence him at all costs. Every public official in the government is paid a few $100,000 at least to have their positions of privilege, and they're in powerful positions. They've got money, they've got political might, and they've got influence. And I, on the other hand, am just a human being, just with my sentience and my poor, persecuted mind, and all I have is me and my voice, and that's all that I have. I don't have a lawyer, I don't have an advocate, I don't have someone to stand in my corner, and I don't have a power of attorney either. This situation is intolerable for me, and I've proven it. It's been systemic, it's political, it is systemic, and so many public officials are really guilty of towing the party line, underpinned by Mr. Ball, who's said I should never get a lawyer, and also Steve Icenides, of whom the government and ASIO were absolutely complicit in my exploitation, because David Irvine was aware that we were together and I was earning a pension. How did he know this? Because Steve, not satisfied with already exploiting me and using me, then went for a carer's pension to get more money from the government while he was caring for me. And it got flagged, and David Irvine pulled Steve aside and said, hang on a minute, Rich's parents were already claiming this payment. You're not allowed to do that. And so we ran into another ethical dilemma. So I'm absolutely aware that ASIO are aware of my exploitation, that Steve and Mr. Ball are powerful key political stakeholders, and they act via proxy in faceless ways that have influenced public opinion of public officials, and this abuses me. And further, those provable things are linked to the Prime Minister's office, Prime Minister of Office and Cabinet, who refused my freedom of information. What that would have revealed is that I had a relationship for 5 years with an ASIO agent, that I was an advocate for a good, 30 years helping people in the community. And I've spoken on local, state and federal levels all over this country. And I've actually even spoken inside Australian Parliament and on ABC National, on the Good Morning Australia show, on all those shows. I'm actually a really well-known and so very friendly, well-known and respected advocate. My problems started in life in about the real problems of political persecution and me being a scapegoat started when powerful people began to owe me money. And that's exactly the reason why I'm in this situation. Look, I'm a kind person. I've always been a kind person. And those who will know me know that I have advocated for them and their loved ones to do with mental illness and recovery. And that I've done that, and it's earned me a Human Rights Award and Sane Australia's Book of the Year. But Sane Australia won't even help me now. And the Australian Human Rights Commission, although it's been acknowledged to them by Tash, my NDIS worker, that there is a conspiracy happening, that I'm being victimised and that it's further causing me harm, refused to acknowledge that that report even exists. And the NDIS company who are looking after me refused to sign off on it. So I'm in a very difficult situation. I have no money. I have no political might. I have no power. I have no lawyer. I have no advocate. And the whole world seems to have... Come on, Crystal. The whole world's forsaken me. Now, I see there's a bit of a biblical allegory, actually, because, I walked the path of pretty much a saint, advocating out of true altruism for 30 years. Then I was bloody crucified. And then what happened was I was revived by the hand of God. And only then... Crystal, come here. And then only then was I forsaken by the whole of humanity. Now, there's an answer in religion when the powers that be, especially a man-made law, oppose and abuse a spirit law or a person of good intention, and that is that God gets angry. Now, I've done a PhD on what the end of the world looks like and what it means framed by artificial intelligence and all sorts of global catastrophic risks, and I'm pretty aware that I already know what's going to happen. So I'm stuck in a position as an earthbound mortal, having been saved by the hand of God, and I've been forsaken by the world. Now, this puts my very life at risk, because without food, without somewhere to be, without a home, without friends, without family, without the law, without a measurable input into society, without a way to relate to the other humans, without something to do or something to earn, and no medication, a person's going to die. And I am going to die unless there's an intervention. It'll be me that enacts the death. Unfortunately, it won't be me who's literally holding the knife. So I can only put this video out there and say, Mark Dreyfus, you need to acknowledge me, and you can't just continue to ignore me, and you can't just pointedly neglect me. That's doing me damage. And the problem for me has been systemic, and this goes right to the top. And you oversee the agencies in which that I have problems with, and which I've already been exploited, and the dice have been loaded in my justice issues. I put to you that I've already failed at the CDDC scheme of compensation for detriment of government authorities, and they've rejected me. Simon Birmingham from the Finance Department, and there's nowhere else I can go. I've got nowhere to go. I've got nothing to do. I barely have food. I don't have company, and I don't have rights, and I don't have money. And this conscious, malicious, intentional redaction of mine from my prosperity is not only against the Charter of Human Rights of a person with a disability, but it's illegal, and it calls out many public officials who have towed the party line of my oppression. And what's the end goal? Do you want me to die? Mark Dreyfus, I'm asking you if you want me to die. Because this problem for me has been systemic, it's been a setup from the start, and it goes right back to the days of my work with the Herald Sun and the Age newspaper, where I was vilified when my book came out by the Herald Sun, who didn't like my left leanings, and they didn't like I was gay, and they ran with a heading called My Descent into Madness. And then that was published and vilified and humiliated me, and it framed my story that was brave and vulnerable and courageous in a different way. And 3 weeks later, the powers that be, the Age, fired me, and that was the beginning of my journey with schizophrenia, which was then in the public domain. And so this political persecution of me has been long, it's been sustained, and every time I'm just about to get justice somewhere, someone pips me at the post or stops it from happening somehow. There is an opportunity whereby I may get some prosperity from WorkSafe at the moment, and that's being decided because when my AAT case failed in an uneven, unbalanced and illegal way that's absolutely corrupt, and I have evidence to the contrary, I messaged the WorkCover Minister, Danny Pearson, and I held him to account, and I said, the legislation says it's within your remit to settle this if it's been within 21 days. So he had a look at my files, which he knew of already, and he directed that WorkSafe deal with one of my claims from 2004. If that happens, I'll have prosperity, and I might just leave you alone. If not, and I die, this is all in the public domain, and you'll be shamed, and for the coroner's efforts, you'll have to acknowledge that this conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, which has victimised me, treated me inequitably, unfairly, and has robbed my human rights and dignity, is an actual provable conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, and the detail of it demonstrates a provable and acknowledgeable phenomenon of persecution and vilification on me, Richard McLean. So, Attorney General, if you don't want me to die, I reckon you should get back to me, because this problem isn't going away, and I'm not going away. Well, if I do go away, you'll be indicted that you actually didn't respond, and in so, you further abused me, ignored me, and victimised me to the point of death. I'm calling you out. I want Mark Dreyfus to return to me and acknowledge my emails and my opposition to this conspiracy to pervert the cause of justice, and I would like it done immediately, please. The problem is that every public official is paid the sum of about $500,000 to sit in their cushy job. They don't know what it's like to suffer. They've got sane lives, you know. They don't know what it's like to actually having put your life on hold and given to other people in art, advocacy, music, in ways for 30 years. They're complicit government pawns. They're often nameless and faceless, and they're paid $500,000 to toe the party line, and they're not going to dob in on their mates. So this is well within the remit of the Attorney General. It is his responsibility to intervene when there's a position that is untenable and is causing potential death, and already has caused death, and then it's cover-up. That's the point. I would like an answer from the Attorney General, and I'd like it by the end of the week. I want you to acknowledge the systemic persecution of me. I want you to acknowledge that you as a lawyer can see easily that this is an inequitable, unfair and unbalanced victimisation of me that has been years long. It has robbed me of millions of dollars, and further, that it violates the Charter of Human Rights of a person with a disability, of which I'm one. That's my sermon for today. I'm Rich McLean, and I changed my name to Barran Dodger because I'm absolutely going to dodge the Barran that has become my life. I'm spiritually wealthy and I'm full of love, and I'm going to forgive everyone that has come to my persecution because they're only humans, and humans are judgmental creatures. So it's Rich McLean signing off. Do you want to see Crystal by the end of the day? Crystal, come here. This is Crystal. And just briefly, Attorney General Steve, my former partner, was done for $1 million embezzlement because of my whistleblowing. And because of his own corrupt finances, he now wants to kill me and my dog Crystal. If he finds out where I live, he'll kill us. I'll know he'll kill us because he's already been admitting to me, when we were together, that he was present at murders. So this, as well as a human rights and justice issue, is now a police matter. I won't accept any less. I've got to stand up for myself, because if I don't, no one else is. My mum's not going to, my dad's not going to, my sister and brother, they've forsaken me a long time ago. My friends think I'm argumentative, and it's difficult for anyone to acknowledge that this huge problem of mine isn't really accessible or even dealable by people who have their own issues in life and who aren't tasked to look after me, unlike the Human Rights Commission, who've utterly rejected me. So, it's Richard McLean with Crystal the Husky. Our time's running out. Whether I'm dead or alive, we will prove this conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, and we will get justice. Because if I'm dead, it'll go to the coroner's court, and if I'm alive, I'll keep annoying you. And this is going to go systemic and politically, and I won't accept no for an answer. I need to be acknowledged, and I'm a human being, and I have a clean criminal record. Okay, that's my little sermon for today. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all not suffering in the way I have, because that's been really bad. And I did a little healing today of myself, and it was really good. Some energy shifted, and I got a job interview. So that's good for me, isn't it? Anyway, I'll accept your congratulations in the in the messages below. Till then, be good to yourselves. Love amplifies love, and just don't be small-minded. Try and be a bit open-minded about these things. I'm not insane. I'm not delusional, and this is actually a provable conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, which has literally caused my own death and then covered it up and is placing me at threat again. I would like the Attorney General to get back to me by the end of the week. Thanks a lot. Bless you.